All right, hey, what's going on, guys? So I wanted to talk about a topic that's very sensitive. And of course, in this day and age, there's a lot of caution one must have in terms of approaching it. And so before I even begin, and you can probably tell from the title what this is about, I just want to say that I am not ever targeting anyone personally in the sense of them as a genuine child of God, but rather the issue itself. And of course, Christians that have an actual heart and a love for people will say the same thing, where the grace of God, the love of God overwhelms them, and we love people as they are, and as a child of God. But of course, sin as well as various things that are against the Lord is something that you have to be aware of, and so that's what I want to talk about today. There's a lot of news that has kind of transpired, of course, throughout the years. But recently, I was just reading a couple of articles, and then this Indiana Congressman Jim Banks has been on the news after a 4-star general was given the title of first female general being awarded this, but it was a transgender person, as the news calls it, a man that has now declared themselves as a female. And then recently I saw other articles about how the American Academy of Pediatrics, there's been studies done in how the amount of high school students in one particular school district being or identifying as gender diverse has increased more than 5-fold. So 10% of high school students in this one school district say they are gender diverse, and that's higher than 1.8% from what it was in 2017. So of course, a substantial increase. And of course, this article goes on to talk about mothers and of course parents in general, but how they are sharing the warning signs of transgender indoctrination. And so it's a lot of movement in that area right now. And of course, if you guys know my position, you guys know that for the LGBTQ movement and just everything that's happening in that realm is a movement that is like the modern day Astra pole, the modern day tower statues of Baal. And it's an idol in terms of people bowing down to it and worshiping it. And a lot of the mainstream media, and especially some of the news in reading some of the articles about how this representative, Jim Banks, this person, he's now suspended. His Twitter account was suspended because all he literally said was, and he tweeted this, he said the title of first female 4-star general or 4-star officer gets taken by a man. And so, of course, he's saying facts. And one thing I have to mention here, and I don't know, and of course I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but when you think about what God does, and he says in Genesis 1, chapter 27, so God created man in his own image, and in the image of God, created he him, male and female created he them. And so it clearly says in the Bible that God created a man and a woman. And so we're in a time right now where a lot of people, they think that you can be other genders and you can cross genders, you can get, procedures or whatnot. But the fact of the matter is, and you don't even need to know God and scripture for that. If you objectively, without any sort of feelings or emotions or any other opinion, you look at somebody and you see that clearly they have, the characteristics of a man or a characteristic of a female, and they were born that way. That's what it is. And it's so factual that I don't understand the movement that the mainstream media and many other people are saying as if it was so normal to call somebody a female when they were really a male and whatnot. And so I want to make sure that people are aware that this movement and the way that people are showing love and all these things, you have to be very careful, because a lot of Christians right now, they're moving in the flow of this, and out of the sake of love and all these things, they are saying to whoever identifies as female or male that, yeah, I can call you he or she and vice versa. But really what you're doing there is you're actually going against God, and you're actually cursing the face of God. And I'm going that far to say it. You're cursing the face of God and saying, I don't recognize, God, that you created this person a man and you created this person a female. And because this other person says that I reject what God had for me and what God created me to be, you are agreeing to that, and you're agreeing to what the other person identifies in terms of their gender. Now, if they call themselves Rachel or whatever, this general's name is Rachel Levine, they call themselves a different name, maybe out of politeness, you could, acknowledge that's what they want to be called, just like any other name. But to be able to clearly delineate and distinguish the fact that there's only one binary solution or answer to gender, and that's male and female, if you go against that, you're actually saying to the face of God that I'm rejecting your creation. And so a lot of people are not aware of that. A lot of Christians are just going on with, showing their appreciation and their love for them. And of course, I'm not saying you shouldn't love the person. I'm not saying you shouldn't hang out with the person. And just to be very clear, sin is sin, right? I'm just as bad. And everybody is just as bad in their own sin as much as anybody in the LGBTQ community that struggles with these sexual sins or identity issues that are clouding this, this culture. And it just so happens to be that the mainstream media, society, and culture, they're taking that and they're making it acceptable for you. And so if you speak against it like Jim Banks was doing and acknowledging that this is factual, that this is taken by a man, and you get silenced for that, and you're getting censored for this, and you can't even have a factual opinion or a declaration, a statement in that. And if you get censored, if you get canceled or whatever it is, then this society is in a direction satanically that is not good. And the same goes if you were to have said anything about any sin, right? So sin is sin, whether you struggle with pornography or you struggle with, drug addiction, if you struggle with whatever it is, the fact that society is allowing people to say, no, we want to cancel anybody that says anything against that sin. It's the same as if you say, we're going to cancel you for saying that murder is bad. We're going to cancel you for saying that, widespread child pornography or, sexual, whatever it is bad. And if you think about it in that sense, then of course you're going to be disgusted by it. Society is going to say, why would you accept the norm as, for pedophilia or for pornography, for drug addiction, for any of these other sins? And with the LGBT community and the progression that they've had, sadly, that's been the case. And the devil has gained territory in that area. And so I want to say all that because a lot of people are very passive. A lot of people are very nonchalant. A lot of people, they don't have a thought behind it. They just go with the flow of society. And I'm not saying that you should go and rub, heads with somebody and just like ruffle feathers and yell at them and degrade them, point fingers and say you're a sinner, you're condemned to hell. I'm not saying that you should be doing those things. I'm not saying that you should ignore them. I'm not saying that you should treat them any differently. You treat them with the love of Christ that you would with anybody that struggles with anything, whether you know of their sin or not, whether they're open about it or not. But what I'm saying is that you got to have standards. You got to have a biblical foundation. You got to have a godly foundation such that you can fight against indoctrination. You can fight against what they teach in schools. You can go up to a school board meeting. You can go up to certain organizations that are mandating, whatever it is that they want you to learn about and for you to acknowledge. And you can have an action that isn't, in some sense, pointing fingers and degrading somebody and all these things. But as a Christian, you can't be moving in the way of the world. You can't be you can't passively allow the indoctrination and the cultural movement to take over education, to take over society. And of course, as it's, with the survey, the 10% of high school students identifying as that, the movement is strong and the indoctrination and the push into the younger generation is strong. And if you think about kids, they don't grow up and they don't have a foundation that's biblical. You have to teach them. You have to guide them. You have to give them the sort of foundation of facts and truth versus sin and what's wicked and things like that. So you have to teach them these things. I'm not saying that you got to be a bigot. I'm not saying that you got to have, this stick and just start whipping people and being all stern and strict and things like that. But I am saying that you got to have standards. You got to be able to be aware of it. You got to be able to pray. You got to be able to take action as opposed to passively allowing things to come about in society. And so we're living in a time right now where if you're not aware, if you're just letting it go by, then it's going to affect your children. It's going to affect the next generation. It's going to affect how you can comfortably say things that are actually factual. And of course, if you say something online and you get censored and you get deleted, whatever it is, and you don't do anything about it, you just let that go by, it's just going to get worse. Who knows what's next? It could be drugs, it could be sexual things, it could be murder, it could be a lot of other sins that will be accepted as norm. And right now, because people are so moved in a status of normacy over the course of 5, 10, 20, 30 years, it's no big deal to people. But to God, it's a big deal. And if you're ever in a place where you have to choose between cursing the face of God versus acknowledging that he rightfully made in his beautiful image of God, he created people, man and female, male and female, man and woman. So you got to acknowledge that. So I just want to give this as a word of encouragement to bring this to your attention. I'm not here to point fingers and just be all super strict about this and religious about it, but I am saying that in the society today, if you're not awake, if you're angry about even this video and the fact that people speak up for truth, then you are delusional in some sense. You have been influenced in a way where you have not the standard and the viewpoint of God. And so I'm talking specifically for transgender. I'm talking specifically for openly acknowledging what is a man is a female and vice versa, and how people acknowledge and deal with this in this day. And so I just wanted to encourage you guys with this. Be praying. A lot of movement, a lot of demonic activity in this area. But I pray, especially for this, that there would be more progress in schools and in many areas. But I know for sure that in the near future, there's going to be a lot of exposure, a lot of vindication, a lot of change, a lot of movement, especially with the younger generation that God's going to bring up. And so take heart in some sense, but at the same time, don't take your foot off the gas pedal. Don't be snoozing. Don't be sleeping. Don't be lackadaisical. Don't be lukewarm in your faith and in your standards for what's biblical and what's godly. And so God bless you guys, and I'll talk to you guys very soon.